It's spooky time, ladies and gentlemen, which can only mean one thing. We need to dive into the tips and tricks that'll help you at your gaming table for horror. Let's go. Welcome, viewers both new and old. This is Sacred with the Sacred Art of Gaming, where today horror is on the table. And we're going to talk about some tips and tricks that I got. I really want to make people feel uncomfortable at the table, from a horror perspective, of course. So, this is Sacred with the Sacred Art of Gaming, and let's talk about it. And we got a little bonus tip at the end, so make sure you stick around. So, boy, I don't have a ton of physical games for horror, I'm realizing. How embarrassing. Quite a few PDFs. If you're wondering what the few on the bottom here are, it's Rippers and Weird War 1, which is like horror adjacent. I almost feel like Morkborg is also like horror adjacent, but anyways, let's get into the deets. So it is important to establish a baseline of normal in your game. And it's important to do that so that you can later break it. And I say that because sometimes normal is going to be different in different worlds, right? So you have something like East Texas University, where you're going to have people that are in the know and they have some idea of some weird things going on. It's mostly just rumors, but for the most part, it's like, hey, if a chupacabra jumps out right now, we're gonna freak out. It's gonna be kind of strange. If you change that to like a fantasy horror game, a chupacabra might not be that strange. It might just be a part of the world. Also, East Texas University, there are some people that don't think it's that crazy. Like, so to say that there's like rumors and stuff, and you know, there's a military base nearby, and people have heard things and stuff. It's not that insane for something to come up. So let's say, like, if it's unheard of, completely unheard of, then that's a whole different story, right? So that pendulum can swing both ways. It's important, and I think horror a lot of times ends up being like a very short campaign or a one-shot. That's even more important, to get your baseline established very early so that you can break it as quickly as possible to really get people engaged. Honestly, I don't know too many long-term horror campaigns outside of, so I mean, you have East Texas University, Monster of the Week, I suppose, which is kind of like a little bit more like a TV show week to week, which, I mean, episodic is what I'm looking for. This can kind of be like that as well. You have Call of Cthulhu, of course. So I'll be honest, I've never played in a Call of Cthulhu game. I wouldn't be opposed to, but if anything is probably long-term outside of ETU, that's not episodic. It would probably be Call of Cthulhu and like World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade type stuff. If you know of any other horror games that you think have a long-term campaign, let me know in the comments down below. Next, after you establish that baseline, you need that really cool hook to like really hit them right in the face with, okay, now you know what normal is for this world. Now let's hit you with the weird stuff and hit you with it in a way that is very interesting and makes you want to learn more, because curiosity killed the cat, right? There's almost always going to be one character that's curious, and that's where the trouble starts. It's because someone looked a little too far, they opened the wrong book, they saw the wrong shit, and next thing you know, all hell is broken loose. Oftentimes the game is contingent upon that curiosity. Now, once you've hooked them, the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is important in the baseline too. The atmosphere needs to be very normal, but I think it's even more important when things start to get weird, because horror at a gaming table is difficult, because chances are you're probably playing with adults, and if you don't really want to scare kids to the point they have nightmares if you are playing with children, but yeah, making a full-grown adult feel some type of way at a gaming table is difficult. So, do everything that you can, if that is the intent of the game, of course. So, little things like candles, music, ambiance, the way that you talk is also, not just the things that you say, but the way in which you say them is huge. You can do a lot just by changing the tempo in which you speak. See? And that wasn't even anything exciting. So now you take something like that, and this kind of rolls right into the next point that I want to make. So smooth transition there into show, don't tell. And when I say show, don't tell, like, you know, you don't want to just say, hey, there are monsters out in the mist. No, that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is have people freaked out about the mist, have people think the mist looks a little strange, looks a little different than normal mist. You want some people to go out into the mist and then, you know, maybe yell, and then you're just like, whoa, what the hell happened there? Until inevitably the generator stops working and they go to fix the generator, and then they just hear strange noises. And, you know, it can be important, well, it can be useful to, like, very slowly unveil this whole generator situation, where, you know, you enter the, like, loading dock area, and maybe that's where the generator is, and as you go in there, you immediately hear a strange noise, almost like starts as a tap and a rubbing, and that rubbing, the more you listen, starts to sound a little like slithering. The very thought of the slithering makes your hair on your arm stand up on end. What could possibly be slithering inside of here? You don't often hear something slither, but this sounds a lot like that. As you turn the corner, sure enough, something moves out of view. But the generator is still not working correctly. As you walk into the room, you see that your fears have been realized. Around the generator are these strange tentacles coiling around the generator. But even worse than that is that the tentacles seem to be aware of your presence, and there's so many of them, you don't even know where they begin and where they end. But what you do know is that you don't want to be in here anymore. So you frantically go to exit. And in that frenzy, that's where the tentacles suddenly are very aware of what you are doing. And as you go to exit, the tentacles grab your ankle. And you can feel the tentacles pulling you towards an opening by the generator. As you begin to scream for help, a few people run out. But what's even more concerning about these tentacles is that you're actually starting to feel the suckers press up against your skin, causing like a burning sensation and like a massaging. But this isn't a good massage. No. This is a burning, almost acidic. The tentacles are eating your leg until you get pulled very quickly to the exit. Your ally grabs your arm just in time, make a couple rolls, blah, blah, and then pulled out into the mist to never be seen again, as there's just horrifying screams off in the distance. Changing the tempo. I didn't even use any flowery language or use a thesaurus there. I really just described the situation. And just using those tools can be very helpful. And that's where my next point, you can go with subtlety or gore. And I mean, you can mix, right? But like that's kind of if there was a chart, subtlety versus gore, right? Generally you're picking one. On one side, you have you hear about something, and almost like the Alfred Hitchcock style, where you know something has happened, but you don't see it, and you allow the imagination to run wild with the ideas. On the other hand, something like Saw, to be very extreme, is on the gory side. That's where you can really describe, you're giving the detail, and that's where you want to be really descriptive. Make sure your players are okay with the kind of things that could happen in your game, depending on how gory you want to get and what lines may exist. With the Alfred Hitchcock method, that's where you don't necessarily have to worry about that as much, because you're allowing their head to run with these ideas by just showing hints of things. And I think you should do that with the gore as well. I don't think you should always do that. You should definitely like lead up to it and then deliver with the gore every now and then. You don't see dead bodies torn apart. You see spots of blood. You don't see the werewolf. You see claw marks on the door. You don't see the cult of Cthulhu performing a ritual on a person. You see a strange book. Those are the kind of things to leave as small clues, and having that mystery is a huge part of that. Isolation is very useful in horror. I would say more useful. It's a cornerstone of horror, more so than any other genre, right? Because in that isolation, that's where you can really freak people out, right? They're very exposed, they're very vulnerable, and that's a big part of horror, right? Is to be exposed and to be vulnerable. I just realized, if you guys don't know what basic role-playing is, that's what Call of Cthulhu is based on. Anyways, not that that was important to talk about just then. You can tell because of the tentacle there. So, great book, by the way. So isolation, yeah, you can do a lot of fun things with isolation, whether you're doing some crazy mind stuff or even like physically tormenting them. Not the player, the character, to be clear. And then lastly, before our bonus tip, we have overwhelming odds, and that may change depending on the type of game that you have, but generally speaking, the odds will never be in their favor. Whether they're dealing with knowledge that's beyond their understanding, or they're dealing with hordes of aliens, or maybe they're just dealing with a person so sadistic and crazy that they're willing to do things that nobody else would be willing to do. Or maybe it's just an unstoppable force. Maybe some type of undead or unhinged being that just doesn't seem to stop and just overwhelmed with blood hunger and thirst for violence. And that brings us to our bonus tip. If you're looking for a good indication of a horror game, more often than not, it is very beneficial, and this isn't specific to just horror, but it's very beneficial to horror. Look for games with a system built around sanity. So Call of Cthulhu, Alien, both have excellent sanity systems. East Texas University doesn't, kind of, I mean sort of. You make spirit rolls, but it doesn't have like a fleshed out sanity system per se. And the reason why is because if you're just dealing with like a health pool or hits or wounds or something like that, and that's really the only resource that can be burned, it's kind of limiting for the GM, because now the GM can really only attack you in one way, and that is like your physical being. However, especially in something horror where you're trying to do the show don't tell, you don't want to necessarily kill them immediately. That's not fun, right? Like, you showed up to the game and you die in the first 30 minutes, what the hell? So when you have some type of like sanity mechanic or a mind mechanic something like that. Shadow the Demon Lord actually has it too, and that's, you know, dark fantasy, but there are definitely other games that have stuff like that. But yeah, that gives you another tool in your toolkit that you can play with without just killing them. And that's just a lot more interesting. Those are your spooky tips for the month of October, so you can get your scary game on whenever you need to. I would love to jump into more scary tips for sure. Solo horror is something I really want to explore, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And drop down in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Is there anything I missed? Anything you disagree with? Am I out of my mind? Let me know. This has been Sacred with the Sacred Art of Gaming. Until next time, I'll be right back.